The Irish War of Independence took place between the years 1919 and 1921. The conflict was fought between Irish rebels, who styled themselves as the Irish Republican Army, also known as the IRA, and British military and auxiliary forces. Ireland had been campaigning for independence from Britain since the mid-1800s, but was split into two parties, a radical movement known as the Irish Republicans, who felt the only way to become independent was to fight for it, and a more moderate party that believed that the route to independence came through legislation through the British government. The moderates had more success in campaigning for Home Rule through the British Parliament. Home Rule would allow for an Irish legislature in Ireland with responsibility for domestic matters, leaving Britain in charge of foreign affairs. First attempted in 1893, the Home Rule Bill would be defeated twice before passing in 1914. However, at the start of World War I, the British government put a hold on Home Rule until the conclusion of the war. 1916 would see Irish Republicans stage their most famous unsuccessful rising, the Easter Rising. During the Rising, Irish Republicans seized many key areas of Dublin and declared Irish independence, holding out for 6 days before ultimately falling to the British Army. Following the Rising, British forces conducted a heavy-handed campaign of arrests and executions, turning Irish public opinion from being pro-moderate political change and putting them firmly in favor of violent revolution as the best path to independence. In December of 1918, the radical Sinn Féin party won the majority of the Irish seats available in the British Parliament and subsequently declared Ireland to be an independent republic. On January 22, 1919, the Sinn Féin formed an independent government of Ireland. On the same day as the formation of the new government, Irish Republican Army troops killed 2 British police officers in County Tipperary. This is often seen as the start of the conflict. In response, Britain outlawed the Irish government in mid-1919 and responded by adding British Army regulars and auxiliary troops known as Black and Tans to their already armed police force. The Black and Tans became notorious amongst the Irish population for ill discipline and reprisal attacks on civilians following Irish Republican Army guerrilla attacks. Irish Republican Army tactics were rooted in using guerrilla warfare to gain control of the countryside by capturing and destroying rural British police stations, driving British forces into the major cities. With the departure of British forces, the Irish Republican Army and Sinn Féin would set up Irish courts and government offices in the liberated towns. The conflict continued to escalate, with a pattern of IRA attacks followed by British reprisals reaching a peak in November of 1921, when following the IRA assassination of 14 members of British intelligence, Black and Tan troops killed 15 civilians and further wounded 65 at a Gaelic football match in Dublin's Croke Park. The Black and Tan attack would come to be known as Bloody Sunday. A week later, IRA forces killed 17 British auxiliaries, resulting in the burning of buildings in towns and cities in County Cork. Rising British casualties, coupled with no sign that the IRA's guerrilla campaign would cease or that Irish resolve was wavering, led to pressure on the British government to negotiate a truce. In 1921, a temporary truce was agreed that would later lead to a peace treaty in 1922. The peace treaty granted all 4 provinces of Ireland the right to independence if they wanted it. County Ulster, later to be known as Northern Ireland, refused the treaty and opted to remain a part of Great Britain. Ratification of the treaty in 1922 led to the creation of the Irish Free State and independence for Southern Ireland.